Good evening and welcome to All Things Considered from the Canadian Orthodox Broadcasting System.ca. I'm interested in, of course, a few articles that I've read in the newspaper. I've read some of these in science magazines and digests and research papers, and I want to touch upon them a little bit this evening in All Things Considered. The first thing I want to do, though, is to mention again about my friend Dmitry Itskov. What we're going to discuss tonight is the startling development in robotics. And this reminds me of Dmitry because sometimes people don't take his ideas too seriously because they seem a bit beyond reality. Whatever reality is and whatever is beyond it, I've always reminded people that Itskov has focused on something that major militaries are also focused on. Itskov is focused on them for the sake of life. The military is focused on them for the sake of death. So I would always prefer Dmitry Itskov's perspective. Itskov is a very spiritual person, very deeply spiritual, and I think has a genuine concern about humanity and how the world is unfolding in a constant stream of warfare, constant stream of bombings and terrorism, and all kinds of, global warming, of course, and major climate change, which is going to end up in some kind of catastrophe, and the possibility of finding some solutions elsewhere in our universe. But I don't think it's wise to write off ideas and hopes such as his, because sometimes they at least offer a glimmer of a solution or a hope of a solution, and whatever comes of it, there's a genuine effort here to do something for humanity and to conceive some way out for mankind of the bag that we're sewing ourselves into. So I have a great deal of respect, and I dare say genuine love for Dmitry Itskov, because I know that he is a person who genuinely and sincerely cares about humanity, about mankind, about the condition of the earth, and about what solutions might be possible to some of them. So I say pay attention to some of these great minds and great visionaries of our era and see what comes of it. We don't know, of course, but what comes of it. But when we talked about robotics, he's talking about something beyond that, of course, but as well robotics, which give us so many useful advances in prosthetic devices. I've seen some of the new bionic hands that people have, and some of you know I have bionic here. I want to demonstrate this. These implants directly against my eardrum. They have a little magnetic rod. I turn them off with the magnetic rod, and I turn them back on with the magnetic rod. So just on and off with this rod, and I can turn them up or down also with this little magnetic rod. And it's amazing what has been developed and what comes to pass in our world. So these bionic things all come from programs like Dmitry Itskov's. So he's already benefited the world in some ways by helping to promote these ideas. UBC team competes in Robot Soccer World Championship. Participants from more than 40 countries. We use the game to demonstrate developments in robotic technology. The picture is too small for you to see, but we have robots playing soccer and doing a very good job of it too. They're rather difficult to defeat. Robots play soccer in the Robocup German Open 2013 in Magdeburg, Germany. The UBC team is participating in a Dutch Robocup this week. In other words, who can build the best robots who can play the best game of soccer? Now you can imagine robots running about the field playing soccer. This is an astonishing development. This is not something simple. They run like human beings. They kick the ball like human beings. And, you know, it's just amazing at what is being done. Robots like this are still fairly small, but coming to larger developments. Just close your eyes and imagine for a moment watching a field full of robots playing an active game of soccer. And think what that means. And think how much that advances us on toward artificial intelligence. We have the humanoid communication robot, Kirobo. Now, Japan has made these small robots that speak and in some ways perceive like a human being. And I want to send them into space as robot astronauts because, first of all, it's cheaper than sending humans in. And secondly, they can roam about and see and, of course, send back by built-in cameras, various things, but do it a little better than the kind of machines that we've had so far. These robots are well, humanoid. They have arms, although they move on rollers and things. Some of them actually can walk by making similar movements to humans or an animal. But they can have ability to talk. And they're going to be sent into outer space, and they're going to do many of the things that a human could do in the exploration of maybe the surface of Mars or whatever, and talk back, send back audio messages, tell us what they've seen, what they've perceived there. Stop and think of what that means. We're going to send a humanoid robot to Mars that's going to explore Mars, and it's going to talk to us and tell us what it's seen. These are incredible developments. And they're things similar to what visionaries like, well, Dmitry, Itskov, maybe Panov, some others. Panov, of course, is in the space program in Russia. He's an astrophysicist. And actually one of my favorite minds, an astrophysicist. Kurzweil. I know people laugh at Kurzweil sometimes without thinking of the things that he's invented that they use in everyday life. Stop and think about a disk of software that makes it possible for your computer to recognize your voice and transfer it into typing. Just think about that for a moment. Kurzweil's invented the machine where you run a book under the scanner and it reads the book to you. It actually reads the words on the page and reads them to a blind person or a person who has severe seeing eye problems. I think about that for a minute. Think what it means that you have this disk that you download in your computer. I use DragonSpeak, and I download this disk little by little. It learns to recognize my voice. It examines something that I've already written to get and picks up my style, and then I train it to recognize my unique way of speaking. Everybody has a unique way of speaking, a bit of an accent of some kind. And so it recognizes and does quite a good job of it. I think I get about a 90% accuracy from it. And that's really quite amazing. And this is one of Kurzweil's inventions. So how could anybody not take Kurzweil seriously when he makes some of these predictions? It's beyond me. I want to turn to something a little sadder right now. And that is the finding that newborn babies have testing the blood tests for newborn babies, very often from the umbilical cord or something. Babies still in the womb are exposed to chemicals known to cause cancer, neurological, and reproductive problems. Still in the womb, babies are already exposed to the possibility of neurological illness, reproductive problems, and the beginnings of cancer. Some of the compounds mimic the effects of hormones involved in brain and tissue development at a time when the brain and tissue is beginning to develop. These hormones are already interfering. And we have people who think there's no problem. these toxins that begin in the womb cause deformities and, well, psychiatric problems and mental problems and other things. Among those are flame retardants, PCBs, PFCs, the kind of things that are found in non-stick coating, and organochlorine pesticides. PFCs are found, in the non-stick pans that you use to cook with. They go into your system, and if you're pregnant, they go straight into the baby's system. And this is really quite catastrophic. I'm even convinced that what appears to be at least an increase in the number of people who are born homosexual or lesbian. I really have to think that this comes from we're totally inundated by pseudoestrogens. I mean, we're swamped with them. Almost every piece of plastic we use, every plastic milk bottle, every plastic utensil we use, every plastic water pitcher, every plastic bucket, not to mention everything that's made with petrochemicals in this way is loaded with pseudoestrogens which pass into the womb, pass to the baby, just as PCBs, PFCs, pesticides, and flame retardants. Can you imagine? The baby has flame retardants in their system while they're still forming in the womb. They can't leave the formation normal. They just can't. None of these things can make for normal formation of babies in the womb. To create neurological disorders and all these other things. This is simply astonishing. What's more astonishing is how many people just don't care or just don't respond to it. And well, there's a terrible price to be paid for all of this. There's a terrible price to be paid for all the damage we're doing to the environment. But here we're producing generations of children who are loaded with flame retardants, PCBs, and pesticides, and huge quantities of pseudoestrogens while their bodies are trying to form in the womb. I mean, this is, I think, we talk about abortion. Of course, we're all opposed to abortion. But why aren't we opposed to downloading all of these toxic chemicals and neurological damaging chemicals and things, and flame retardants and PCBs? Why aren't we opposed to downloading those into our infants in the womb? Why aren't any voices spoken out about, destroying a child before it's born, and then letting it be born into the world? Why aren't we protesting against these things? That's beyond me. But anyway, this is one thing I just wanted to call invite people's attention to. If you have any real concern for your children and your children's children, don't just protest abortion. Protest the destruction of the fetus while it's still in the womb, and it's going to be born, of course, because we don't countenance abortion. But it's going to be born into this world with all of these things wrong that we have allowed to go unchecked and without any protest against them at all. I can't figure out how we think this balances. So think about it a little bit and perhaps protest this as well. I think everybody who's out protesting is pro-life should also have a few posters about protesting about downloading all of these hideous toxins and chemicals into unborn children. There should at least be some signs protesting that, along with all of the other pro-life signs and protests. Think about it. Those of you who are involved in any kind of pro-life movement, think about this too. Thank you all, and God bless you. Thanks for joining us on All Things Considered. And we'll carry on with our discussion of the feast days. We'll finish, in the next broadcast, we will go completely through Matins. We'll finish the whole service in one broadcast. And we'll announce when we've gone through all 12, then we'll publish a book on the subject of the theology and teachings of the 12 great feast days. Thank you all, and God bless you.